Hey everyone, Alex here, and welcome to Thinking Outside the Bureau. Scripted this time, so yeah. The audio, this is I set up my recording software to kind of increase the volume of my microphone, so I think it's loud enough now, and I only have to edit it afterwards. So, on with the mostly reading for the most part. So, tax day is come and gone, and while I admit that one day we might as well end the Fed, that day is far off. The truth is that our economy needs to be worked into one that modestly works for all of us, not just the top 1%, you know. Uh, the idea, I guess, in terms of money, I guess maybe between have a range between say 40,000 and 100,000. Um, Considering that after 90 or 100,000, the kind of joy, I guess, the enjoyment that you get out of receiving more money just kind of just sinks down, per dollar, it just tapers off. Unless, I mean, granted, that's a marginal sort of thing, like per dollar. But if you have not just 100,000, but way over a million or a billion, then you're like, oh, I love my money so much, I have to have more wealth, and screw everyone else, I have to have my profits. The kind of system. I mean, I guess people call it capitalism. That I mean, you leave it up to just people who just set up wealth, and just leave the wealth to them and the profits to them, and that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. So let's consider adjustments to the tax system. One that alleviates the burden, and another that's fiscally conservative. A lot of people are concerned about this deficit, irrelevant as it may be, given MMT, the modern monetary theory. The idea being behind it being that the only reason why the federal debt matters is because more currency circulates. There's inflation. If it goes to the top 1%, as I kind of implied it does, just kind of, I mean, generally summarized, it goes to 1%. They buy more stocks and bonds, more wealth, and then the price of wealth just keeps rising up. You have housing values just skyrocketing. You have stocks always rising. Even when there's a dip, it just makes up for it later on, and it's just kind of absurd. So it'd be nice instead for ordinary people to have more money, to purchase more products, and then more products purchased means, hey, we can make more jobs, or maybe reduce the price of products because maybe through some other things just deregulation of small businesses. That could mean, hey, we can now farm in our houses, or have businesses in our houses, or build more houses, and stuff beyond that. But in terms of the debt, the Fed is not going to just summon it all back. They're not just going to demand just that whole 20 or 21 trillion just all back. I mean, granted, there's two or three, some amount that's international. So maybe, if we're messing with China and Russia so much, maybe they'll just ask for theirs back. But then that's just maybe 1.5 trillion. That's like a pint in the bucket. Sure, they'll be better off, and we'll be a little worse off, but not apocalyptically. So that's the worst case scenario. So first idea, we could eliminate taxes for everyone earning less than $100,000. As I kind of mentioned, that's just kind of a general threshold. You'll notice I kind of estimate a lot of things. Just round off a lot. Just keep it simple. So I think I've heard this from. I'm not sure if I thought of it first, or maybe I probably heard it first from Elijah Manley. The young man running for school board in Broward County, possibly running for president. So you keep an eye out when it's like the 2030s and you know things are getting pretty crazy. And then all of a sudden, hey, there's a third party candidate who's becoming president. It's I mean that's his plan, I guess. Assuming that things. Anyways, enough of that tangent. So yes, that tax relief would add approximately $1 trillion to the annual deficit, but all that money is for the middle, like 70 or 72%. So we're prone to like spend it or even donate it to the needy or to emergency funds. I mean, this is like the 21st century. We're not stupid, okay? The middle class has gone to school. We have the internet and all this, and I mean, it's hard to imagine that we would just like waste so much. I mean, we probably wouldn't waste more than the government spends on money, considering that there's a lot of corporate subsidies. That going into the second point. Considering that many people care about the deficit, we might as well reduce corporate subsidies. Those go to the top 1% after all, and they also go to just businesses that kind of ruin the environment, polluting water or paying, or just, or often just uh, giving money to like managers and investors instead of employees. Um, I'll kind of get to that later. But yeah, here's a proposal by the Libertarian Party, and I quote: "Even this modest series of federal spending cuts would total 712 billion." Now this is just a halfway through an email I got from them, by the way, which would balance the budget and leave 46 billion more for income tax cuts. Cut defense spending in half. Do we really need to spend more than the next 9 countries combined? Not if you refrain from getting involved in other countries' civil wars. Savings 316 billion. Food and agriculture. Agriculture behemoths are some of the biggest recipients of corporate welfare. Savings 138 billion. Housing. Is subsidizing the building industry a proper role for the federal government? Savings 90 billion. Education. The federal government educates no one and only makes the job more difficult for local school districts and private schools. Savings 85 billion. Energy and the environment. Oil companies don't need tax dollars, and environmental pollution can be policed. Can be policed more effectively at the state or local level. Savings 51 billion. Science. Do we really need to subsidize well-funded pharmaceutical and tech companies? Savings 32 billion. Now, here's what I gotta say about that. Now, it seems to be like a very like localized like thinking about it. As they said, like local school districts and private schools, state level, local level. But a lot of issues are interstate. But considering, as I mentioned, I mean, we have the internet. A lot of us are middle class ish, middle income, so we can, get things done. These proposals kind of ignore interstate needs, but I mean, with all that networking and the little extra money that we'd have from the tax relief or tax cuts, we could probably get a lot more done. I mean, just, for instance, consider DAPL, Dakota Access Pipeline, like that was an interstate thing. It was from like the Dakotas to Missouri, and a lot of people were like, oh dang, it's gonna ruin the Missouri River. We gotta stop this. So there were like thousands of people out there protesting it, and they got food and shelter and water, and I think they kind of stopped it, but then Trump said he'd bring it back. So yeah, but then that's kind of a subsidy thing, and a support thing, and I guess in effectively sort of a defense spending thing, just defending the interest of corporations. Of course, we'd have to wrest control from those corporations. When just take our government back, basically. So there might be a need for sort of repeal of Citizens United or something like that. And now, something that isn't about limiting government, increasing taxes on the 1%. Oh, the inhumanity. So, um, I think from what I calculated based on like an income percentile calculator, the top 1% earn more than $300,000 per year. So one new marginal rate could be between like for incomes like earnings between 300,000 and 500,000 could be like 40%, and from 500,000 to a million could be 50%. And upwards of that, maybe like 60%, 70, 80, even 90. I mean, a lot of people are saying, oh, hey, that's what it used to be. And yeah, that did make the 50s pretty good. Pretty good time. Um, Let me think. And as I mentioned, like you don't need to be like you don't need to earn like a million. It's just it's excessive, and it becomes like an impulsive kind of thing, an addictive thing. Face it, libertarians, they can afford to pay a few 10,000 more net of expenses. Which brings me to a grand finale of sorts, revolutionizing capital taxes. Basically, if it's monetary, it's either mostly taxed as income or entirely taxed as estate, or a death tax. So yeah, 100% estate tax on money. Like if you get the money, that's it. It's not yours. It's just poof, it's gone. Goes back to the Fed. Bye bye money. Or if it's not monetary, it's not taxed until you sell it. So, if you buy something and then, you pass it on, then it's fine. It'll just be there. And if you sell it, then, your basis will be zero. Okay, now I'm kind of getting into the kind of gain and loss terms. Basically, forget calculating gains and losses, okay? You deduct what you pay and you're taxed on what you receive in terms of money. No seizure of property needed. Like if you get the property and you pay the money, that's fine. But if it's the other way around, you get the money, then you gotta pay some of that. And thus you don't have to be like, oh, now I bought this thing for a gain or something, and now I have to pay money for it. No, it's fine. It's fine. As such, you might want to commit to the property you buy instead of selling it off to some profit seeker, Um, that's kind of, I mean, it's kind of a socialist kind of thing, I mean, if you're going to stick with a property, you might as well use it, and, you could maybe even give it away to your employees, and, that'd be nice, maybe instead of selling it off, get a little pension or something. I mean, considering that if you're more than like 100,000, or I mean 300 or whatever, 100,000, you're gonna get really taxed. That like what I suggested here is kind of a low end of proposals. Um, the point is that socialism. Point is that employees should effectively own the property that they work on, the capital that they work on. Like a factory or like an office space or something like that. And I mean, maybe pay like the people who actually put something into owning that. Okay, pay them something. Return on investment, but a modest return, a little interest there, here and there, but that's basically it. So, kind of going inside the bureau there, but that'll be it for this video. Goodbye.